I'm not gonna start this off with any long-winded beating around the bush statements. If you're here, you probably know where my feelings are, but I'll go a step further and say that I think Mega Man 8 is my favorite of the original Timeline series.
You serious?
And given that anytime this game is brought up, it's actively shat on. Like Mega Man X7, but that's a topic for a whole nother video. And more likely than not, if you're watching this video, you probably fall into that category as well. And I'm not here to change your opinion on that. However, what I've always found fascinating is that even if something is universally panned by the majority, it'll still have fans. Kind of like the new Star Wars trilogy. Yeah, I know, low-hanging fruit. I'll try a bit harder. I digress. Back on Mega Man 8. I always had a hard time trying to figure out why this one is so universally loathed by Mega Man fans and casual gamers alike. I enjoyed the hell out of it when I got it back in the late 90s, and after coming off the X series, which was the first Mega Man games I had ever actually played, I found that while it's definitely easier than most Mega Man games, it has its own charm to it. So today I wanted to do something a little different and look back at the critical as well as fan reception back when this first came out. You can look at this as less of a review of Mega Man 8 and more so looking at where the actual heat from this game originated from. You know, aside from people just not enjoying it. But I wanted to look deeper into the actual reception of the game. What did everyone think upon launch? Who were the biggest naysayers of it when it originated? Did it receive any favorable responses, etc, etc, etc? But I do think that there's more to this game rather than it just being like a so bad it's good game or just nostalgia. Funny enough, there are other games that I do feel fall under this category that also have the number 8 attached to them, or aren't as bad as what the general populace say they are. And I'd love to cover them in the future if this video does well. Again, if you dislike Mega Man 8, you're not wrong. That's how you feel, and that's cool. All right, I'm done kissing everyone's butt now.
Relax your body now.
So either agreeing or disagreeing, I want to see if the game really is crap or has the power of suggestion and power of popular opinion helped with the overall disdain of the game. The power of suggestion is a strong thing, and even if we don't see it all the time, outside influences, whether they be content creators, social media heads, politicians, corporate entities, or whoever it is you look up to, undoubtedly play a big role in how individuals perceive things. This is why the hate of Mega Man 8. The oldest review that's available online that I could find was a 1997 review from IGN. Yeah, IGN has seemingly been around since the dawn of time. However, one thing to note is that at the top of the article, it states it was updated in 2018. So in fairness, I took a look back on the Wayback Machine just to see if there was any changes or any updates to it. And for the most part, it seems like it's the exact same review. I think the only thing they updated was just the format change, because if you go back in the Wayback Machine, it looks like the format and the way the website is looks way different than what it does now. The review itself is pretty middle of the road to 6 out of 10, with the only real criticism being it's just more of the same. The standout line being, so this is what it comes down to. Do you really want to play another 2D Mega Man game? Which that line alone is hardly enough to make a fan base want to turn on something. Unfortunately, a lot of the reviews from this time frame are not available online to read over. Even checking Famitsu's main website, I can't find it. However, its wiki does have the scores available. Looking at the wiki scores though, they range from middle of the road to fairly high. So how does one go from middle of the road / slightly above average to absolute hate? Well, let's take a look at some other reviewers and see what they have to say about it. I'm not gonna call out anyone specific here, because since it's on YouTube and it's a freaking Mega Man game, you'll be able to tell that it's been covered extensively and can easily look up various YouTubers' opinions on here. So there's a wide range of people that you can look at. However, you'll know right away if it's one of those reviews where they're hating on it just for the sake of it being popular, because usually the review will start off and essentially be like this. I have rarely been mad at a game that's this terrible, that is ungodly broken. I can't even imagine why the hell the developers would do this to such a beloved franchise. And yes, I'm new to the Mega Man series, but I can entirely see why the game gets the rightful hate that it deserves. Question, if you're new to the series, why would you go out of your way to play the one that popular consensus says is bad? why wouldn't you go out of your way to play one of the better games or best games like Mega Man 2? Which, I mean, if I'm being honest, I do think is a bit overrated personally. But I think you get my point. They're hating on it for the sake of it being the correct opinion. The problem with going into any situation with a negative perspective like this is you've already decided this is gonna be bad. Now, this isn't a cape for Mega Man 8. There's definitely some bullshit that I'll talk about later. But applying this logic, you're going to immediately hunt for crap to bitch about. It's kind of like a science experiment. If you go into it with like any sort of bias, you'll be sort of inadvertently and kind of subtly looking for that particular information or that particular outcome in your experiment. Let's bite though, and take a look at the common problems brought up from people who have reviewed Mega Man 8. And let's just address the elephant in the room and get it over with first. The voice acting.
Dr. Light, how's it going? Will he be okay?
I don't know where this energy came from, but cannot let it fall into Dr. Wowie's hands. You must recover all the energy immediately, Mega Man. When we find that meteor, we'll find Dr. Wowie.
Even if you haven't played this game before, you've undoubtedly seen these cutscenes somewhere. And for good reason. They suck and are hilarious. I'm not gonna spend too much time here because it's been done to death from literally everybody on the internet. But I think as time has progressed, people have gone on to appreciate how cheesy and laughably bad the voice acting is. Personally, despite the fact that, yeah, the voice acting is bad, I never really had a problem with it growing up. To me, it was just anime voice acting at the time, and given the time frame, you just got what you got. But let's be real here, the animation though is spectacular. This would have been a top tier anime in terms of animation if it would have been released as a show back in the day. However, the biggest and probably most legitimate criticism that I can give for not only the cutscenes but for the game in general, it has some of the worst audio mixing I've ever heard in my life.
Rush?
You okay?
Who are you?
My name is Duo. I was born with the sole purpose to eliminate the evil energy from this universe. It's coming.
Say what you will about the voice acting, but that audio mixing is, I mean, it's just unforgivable. And that's coming from me, where if you look back at some of my old videos, the audio is just absolutely terrible. However, sticking with the music though, it's fantastic. Literally some of the best in the whole series. It doesn't quite have the intensity as some of the other games, but it has this laid back, chill vibe to it. That often reminds me of the music from Phantasy Star Online. Moving past the music and audio of the game, let's go to the meat and the potatoes. The bosses. And honestly, there's really no middle ground here. You either think the bosses are some of the cheapest or worst in the series, or you genuinely enjoy them because of the variety in with which you fight them. Personally, I love them. Aesthetically, everyone's gonna have different likes and dislikes on what makes a quote unquote cool robot master. But for what it's worth, I think the designs in this game are genuinely pretty cool, with my personal favorite designed robot master being Swordman and Tenguman. Like many other Mega Man games, fans were encouraged to send in their own robot master designs. During the credits, they added a bunch of fan art in from the different people that actually sent in designs that didn't quite make the cut for the game. And I thought it was a nice touch. Aside from general aesthetics, we have the actual fights themselves, which I've heard some people online say they're either too easy or too hard. Schrodinger's cat of robot masters, I guess. Funny enough, I can kind of see where people are coming from with this. The robot master weaknesses are designed to quote unquote freeze them a quick second, giving the player an opportunity to hit them with a Mega Buster shot or another special attack. Compound this with the additional Mega Buster upgrades you can purchase from the shop, then yeah, the bosses are gonna go down pretty easily. However, if you don't know any of that, yeah, you're probably gonna get your ass kicked a little bit. But the bosses aren't impossible to beat with the charge shot alone. In fact, I'd argue in terms of timing and pattern recognition, Mega Man 8 is probably one of the tightest when it comes to all that. This goes for not only the robot masters, but the other bosses in Wily's castle. Save for a few, but I'll get into that in just a second. Like with all my other videos, don't just take my word for it. Expose me. Legacy Collection 2 is available for 20 bucks basically everywhere now, so I highly encourage everyone out there to buy it and basically tell me that I'm wrong with the bosses, because then it'll at least show that Legacy 2 is being bought more.
We've got to have money.
One quick piece of advice, because I always seem to see people having trouble with Tenguman's Yadaharashi attack. He always telegraphs right before he does it. And when this happens, jump. With Mega Man 8, you're rewarded for experimenting with the different robot powers, which more on that in a minute. However, there is one bullshit boss in the game. Wily's Castle Level 1 boss. Screw this guy. Simply put, you have to use the dumb kickball move in order to hit this boss. Simple, right? Well, the boss will randomly show up in one of 4 holes. On top of that, within a matter of seconds, the other 3 attacks the boss can utilize drop from the ceiling, giving you only a matter of seconds to get a kickoff. The other problem is that the soccer ball kicks in an arc, and you only have like a matter of seconds to actually kick the ball, and if you don't get it off in that time frame, the boss will go back up and disappear in another section. There's literally no chance to strategize. It's pure luck. Also, this kind of segues into another problem with the game and a point of contingency is that the mini bosses in the game are ridiculous. You can argue for the quality of the main bosses being like an aesthetic thing, or you just don't like the way the fights play out, or whatever the case is, but the mini bosses, that's a little harder to swallow. With enough practice, the mini bosses are doable, but are kind of BS. Again, personal opinion, but the only mini boss that's really annoying is the boss on Aquaman stage. What makes it so difficult is the fact that you're constantly falling and it's constantly crushing the logs you're on. On top of this, the boss is stupid fast at times, tanks a bunch of damage, and will often rush you. However, my point of contingency with this aspect is something that I brought up briefly before, and it's one of the things I think that makes Mega Man 8 stand out above other Mega Man games, and it's the fact that it rewards you for experimenting with the different special moves you get. With Mega Man 8's weapons, you're given a whole bunch of ammo to utilize in the game. Minus Astro Man's weapon, but that thing's already OP anyway. And by experimenting with the different power-ups, you should be able to devise a strategy for getting by virtually all the mini-bosses in the game with only a little bit of trouble. This even expands out to the regular gameplay as well. See, one of the other major criticisms is in the level design. Reviewers often cite the levels being long or enemy placements just being unfair. Now, I don't entirely disagree with this, but I don't think the levels are long per se. But I think that the health pickups are so few and far between that the levels just feel like they drag out forever. However, what is plentiful are the weapon energy pickups. And by utilizing your weapons in the game, it allows you to approach situations completely different. This allows you to handle some of the trickier platforming parts as well as some of the dodgier enemy replacements in the game. One of the ways the game sort of shows you how to do this is by the bolt placements in the game. You need to utilize your various power-ups in order to get them. And what you'll find is there are multiple ways to get them, just like there's multiple ways to handle challenges on the screen. Another thing to keep in mind is even if you have a power-up selected, you still have access to your Mega Buster. So virtually, you have access to 2 weapons at the same time. Technically 4 if you count the different power-up versions of the shot. Compound this with the fact that you can purchase various upgrades in the shop. There is tons of customization and ways you can tailor your play experience. Now, I'm probably overselling it a bit, but basically there's a lot of different customization available for how you want to play the game. So even if something seems ridiculous, there is usually a way to work around the frustration. Now, I've been trying to be as fair as possible when talking about this game, but there are 4 spots in particular, for lack of a better word, are pretty bad. And the first 2 happen in Dr. Wily's stages 1 and 2. The first deals with this one section of the hookshot jump in Wily's stage 1. I admire the game for pushing you to utilize your weapons more, but the timing on getting these hookshot lands can be absolutely brutal to land. The second comes from Wily's stage 2. I haven't mentioned it yet, but Mega Man 9 has these gimmick type of sections in levels, and one of them is a shmup section. And I genuinely like these sections. They're not the greatest shmups ever made, but I think they're fun. However, during the shmup section on Wily's stage 2, unless you know exactly what's gonna happen with all these wall sections, you're dead. The screen moves fast, and Mega Man does not move fast enough to counter this. I genuinely think it's impossible on a first-time playthrough to get through this section without dying, and that's not a challenge to me. I think that's just BS.
This stinks! This is total BS! This is... Oh, got it.
But the absolute god-awful worst thing this game has to offer comes from both Frostman stage and Wily's level 1. Doing some digging, which basically means that I looked at the Wikipedia for the game, It turns out that the original producer on Mega Man left this title, which prompted Keiji Inafune to take over producing roles. And with this new Mega Man game, they wanted to try new things to give a more fresh experience. And I actually appreciate a lot of the things they were doing to try to accomplish this, except this crap. I'll be real, if someone was to say they hated this game solely based on these sections, I wouldn't completely disagree with them. It's sort of a rhythm-based section, but there's also timing, placement, and enemies to contend with. This section is so painful that it literally undercuts so much good in the game. Thankfully, there's only 2 sections in the game that are like this, and that's at Frostman stage and Wily stage level 1, but honestly, I wouldn't be that surprised if people weren't able to get past even Frostman stage, because even on that level, that little speeder section is just, it's stupid. It's so dumb. I don't understand their logic in putting it there. The timing for some of this is absolutely insane, and these sections go on forever. And you know what's funny? I just thought about it. Most of the hate that comes from this game, and then what people say, like the levels are too long and stuff like that, it actually reminds me a lot of like what I felt during these stages. So it wouldn't surprise me if most of the hate just comes from these sections alone. Jesus Christ, there's like people fucking banging on my roof right now. Okay. All the Mega Man 8 haters are trying to get me, I guess. And there isn't an easy way of contending with these sections. You basically just have to do it. However, once you get past each section, there are mercifully auto checkpoints. I don't think these are in the original version of the game, so that's just more of an incentive to get the Legacy Collection versions, because they're essentially the same thing, minus 1 or 2 different things. Now, I've actually beaten the original PS1 version, but after playing the Legacy version, I don't recommend it. Two miscellaneous things I wanted to mention while I wrap this up. The rush upgrades, while nice, are basically useless save for the healing ones. And the other is that the Legacy Collection is a port of the PS1 version, which is sort of inferior because Mega Man 8 on the Saturn also has Cutman and Woodman as bosses. So I'd say if you can find a way to play that version, play it. Also, the Japanese opening is vastly superior to the English opening. Same opening clips, but the Japanese version has the song Electronic Communication over it, which I think is amazing. And that was Mega Man 8. Like most things when it comes to entertainment, what you personally enjoy will dictate your mileage on how much you'll like anything. And like I said before, I love this game, but depending on how you feel about it, your mileage may vary. So why the hate of Mega Man 8? For everything that I was reading about it, I think most of the hate just comes from the fact that people were just kind of burnt out and tired of traditional Mega Man games. And although they tried different things with this game, it just wasn't enough. But then you also have the hardcores that didn't want anything changed from the original formula. So in a way, they ended up alienating their hardcore fan base as well with these new sections. I will say though, it is nice to know that in time, this game has garnered a larger fan base and it's a lot more appreciated now than it was before. Again, if you haven't played it in a while, go check it out. I think you might be genuinely surprised. So why the hate of Mega Man 8? Probably that freaking jump slide section. Make sure to keep things light and rebellious, and I'll see you guys next time.